Hi everyone, it's Alan Lepofsky from Constellation Research, and I'm coming to you today live from the showcase floor at BoxWorks 2015 in San Francisco. So I apologize if the lighting's not great and if you can't hear me well, but I'll do my best to speak up. So we've just finished the last few days of the event, and I want to quickly recap some of my key thoughts that are going on. Let's start with the really good things. So the overarching theme of this year has clearly been that for the last decade, Box has been an enterprise file sharing company. You put files up in the cloud, you sync them, you share them. The next evolution of this company moving forward is all about them being a platform provider for file-based, content-based services. So it's how do you use that content you're storing in applications that you're building that complete business processes. How do doctors use medical images, how do insurance people capture and collect forms, etc. So it's all about the business process. Now, this journey for them started probably about 3 years ago, and they really started heavily investing in the API layer, the back end, the infrastructure sort of things that they're building. In previous years, I reported on Box Workflow, Box Metadata. This is all the evolution of that. So, you know, really strong story there. In the same way companies like, here's the analogy they use, Twilio provides communication services for applications, or Stripe provides payment systems for applications. Box wants to be the content service for major applications going forward. Obviously, they have competition in this space with Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, IBM Bluemix, etc. Now, the IBM one is interesting because we're also hearing a lot of partnerships from IBM and Box. So I think we're going to have to stay tuned and see how that develops, because imagine if Box becomes the content service provider for all of the applications running on Bluemix and on IBM SoftLayer. But more about that later. So let's talk about some of the good announcements and news from this year on that infrastructure side. So not just the platform, but they mentioned things in compliance and governance like legal holds for security for law firms or for companies that are going through audits. So legal hold, big new addition. In information right management, they released two new features: device trust, so you can actually lock down at the device level who has access or what type of devices have access to Box content. Maybe you want it on iPads, but not on phones, etc. So you can lock down devices. And you can also watermark files so that people are assured of where they come from. So those are two new things in information rights management. In enterprise key management, so a security feature, last year they introduced the ability to have customers hold on to their own keys. But that required a hardware infrastructure, a machine that had to kind of manage that. Well, now they're announcing they're going to be able to leverage a newly announced Amazon feature called Amazon Web Services Key Management. So what you're going to be able to do is use Amazon's features to do this, and it'll be much easier enterprise key management so that Box can hold one set of keys, you can hold one set of keys, and that way your company can control access to all of your data. That will be coming out next year, though. That's not available right now. Also available next year, so these are some forward-thinking announcements, are the ability to choose your own network. So instead of just using the internet to connect your company to the Box network or where the information is stored, you can choose AT&T as a private network, or in Japan, NTT as a private network, and they'll be expanding those choices as well. Finally, probably one of the big announcements is the ability to not store your content in a Box-run data center. So they are going to give you choices. The Box data centers will still run the logic and the UI and the metadata for all of the things you do in Box, but they're going to start to give you choices like using IBM SoftLayer's data centers to actually hold your data. So that's big for things like requirements and governance of where data exists, so where that data retention is and where data sits. So again, future thinking announcement, they're mentioning that it will be IBM SoftLayer in 2016. So again, a key part of that IBM Box announcement. Now those are a lot of the good things they're doing, and a lot of that is based in the back end. Those are huge, important infrastructure changes that Box has made. Where I'm disappointed in BoxWorks 2015 is I didn't hear a lot about changes to the user experience, the mobile apps, the web user interface. They've mentioned that changes are coming next year, but there's a lot of things I'd like to see Box be doing. So for example, in discovery, unless somebody sends you a link to Box content, It's very hard today to actually know what content exists in Box. I've spoken to lots of customers while I've been here this week that say the more you use it, the more file structures you get. It becomes difficult to go to the website and navigate. You can't do things like filter the folders that you want to see. Once you dive into a folder, you can't filter the files that you want to see. You can sort them, but you can't say, show me all of the files of this type, by this author, in this date range, etc. So I'd like to see Box dramatically improve the ability to find content in their network. Along with that, I'd love to see widgets on a dashboard sort of interface or analytics that actually show me things like what's the newest content, what's the most popular content. If I'm looking at a file, what content is similar to this? What content is related to it? So similar content, like when you're looking at a YouTube video or looking at a SlideShare presentation, they always tell you about others that are like it. I'd love to see that in Box. I'm looking at a file, show me some others. So that's what I'd call similar content. Let's get a little more advanced. What about related content? Content that comes from other tools. What if I'm looking at a file in Box and it can actually tell me about all the CRM records that are related to that, or all the trouble tickets that are related to that, or all the GitHub check-ins that are related to that. So I'd like to see Box expanding related content and similar content. Now similarly, I'd like to see them do stuff more about me, personally. I'd like to be able to see, how is my stuff doing? Which of my files are people looking at and commenting on? Which have the most views and downloads? What are the recent things that I've been looking at? What are the who are the people that I interact with the most? Who are the people that like the things that I do? Who is sort of my network? So I'd like to lead it in from content to people. Who are the top contributors in the groups that I belong to? Who's creating the most content? Who's creating the most popular content? Who are the people that are creating content like my content? So maybe I should start following them. So I think Box has a lot of opportunity, and I'm a little disappointed they didn't act upon any of it in content and in people. Now, let's take content and people and extrapolate it to collaboration. So one of the issues speaking to customers today is that Box is still just sort of a collection of folders. Box needs to become more of a workspace sort of environment that has not just the content, but calendars and membership and people and all of these things. And instead of the folder metaphor, it needs to become more of a community or more of a workplace metaphor. But, I'd really like to see that happen. When you're in those, I'd also like to see it be easier to share content. So if I'm looking at a file today, I want to easily post it to other tools. And today you can do that, but it's hidden under many menus. There is a share button, but it brings up a URL, an email. What about sharing to Chatter, sharing to Jive, sharing to Slack? Well, that's buried 3 or 4 menus deep. I'd like to see it right on that share button. So lots of opportunity for sharing. And then finally, the thing that I'd like to see improved is the actual content creation process. So today, you mainly use Office or PDFs and create content, but Box has this thing called Box Notes that today creates quite basic sort of online notes. I'd like to see that improve to have a native Box Notes client sitting on my desktop that syncs not just the files, not files from Box, but just syncs the notes from Box so that I can do things like note-taking. I'd like to see the ability to clip content from the web into Box Notes. So right now, Box is just a file storage. What if Box could contain other objects? What if I could link a website into a Box folder or inside a Box Note? What if I could clip a map that I want to share with people, or a Google video or YouTube video? What about songs from Spotify? All of the pieces of content that I need that are involved with a project, why are those not storable inside Box? Why doesn't Box have something like a screenshotting tool? They just introduced a capture tool, which I should mention, which is something very interesting. And they also introduced a couple good UI things like HD video, 3D animations. But some of the things that I've mentioned in the last few minutes, the basics, I think really need improving in Box. So there you have it. That's my quick wrap up. I will be doing a blog post with more details, but I wanted to quickly get you my thoughts. Extremely positive in the infrastructure and back-end side of things, Box becoming a platform, but I'm disappointed in not seeing a lot of changes in the user experience and the actual usage of core Box functionality, which is creating, sharing, discovering, all of those things that happen around files. So there you have my report, Alan Lepofsky from BoxWorks 2015. I'd love to hear your feedback, so please feel free to get in touch with me. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you next time.